Hey, what's going on, guys? There's not much to see on this box, but this is the Black Trojan horse kit that we're going to be taking a look at for today's video. The name also a bit misleading because it's not black. It's not shaped like a horse either, but this is actually a sort of RX-78-2 color scheme applied onto a sort of Godzilla-shaped sort of mecha. It's a pretty interesting design to be sure, so looking forward to checking this one out, seeing what it's like. Let's go ahead and get into it for today's video. And so like I said, there's really not much to see here on the outside of the box, so we can pretty much get right into it. I'm not sure what this means, but I think this is probably where the Black Trojan horse name is there in Chinese. I know that's black, I know that's horse, so without any further ado, let's just go ahead and pop it open and check out the contents inside. It's mostly just going to be runners. I think we should have some decals in here, as well as, of course, the instruction manual, which we'll take a look at. The decal sheet here, pretty good size, and as you can see, we've got, it looks like some of the decals in two different options. So like you've got red with gray or gray with red. For some of those, with everything else being either in gray or red. It's like a dark gray and red, and then there's some white bits in there as well. So kind of interesting for the decals we've got here for this. Some nice options there. And then our instruction manual here, which is pretty interesting, has a different name on here, Steel Dragon, which actually kind of makes more sense. And this is actually in Japanese, not in Chinese here for that text. And then as we can see here, we have like the sort of Gundam looking design and the Evangelion looking design over here on this side, which I think there's another color version of this that is in like Eva colors. That's sort of like that one, I believe. Around on the back is going to be our decal guide here for this, showing where the decals are going to go. Is that all? Yeah, that might be all there. On the front inside pages here is going to be our parts list. And then we're on into the construction. So the construction is going to continue. It looks like, okay, so this is interesting because it shows us building the head here, which is just like the base head. And then as you can see, kind of between the two versions, the head is the same. And it's just like one version has the V fin like the Gundam and the other one has the horn like the Eva. So in this case, we're just building the head without the horn at all. Or V-fin, whatever. And it looks like that is added here at the end, towards the end, and it looks like we have parts for both. We'll take a closer look at that on the runners, but it looks like you have the option whether you want to make the V-fin or the horn. Now this is obviously molded in the colors of the Gundam, so that's the one that's kind of meant to be used for this. But if you wanted to repaint it or something, for example, it looks like having that horn would allow you to make the sort of more Eva looking one. But otherwise, nothing really too noteworthy, it seems, here for the instruction manual. It goes through all the construction. There it's got the tail, which is a part of the hip section here, it looks like. The legs, the arms, and then as I saw there towards the end, there was also the weapon section here as well. So it is going to have this gun and then sword weapons there. Looks like some cool gimmicks for those. All right, so getting into the runners, then here we have runner A, and here you can see the part for the V-fin and the part for the Eva horn right there on the A runner here in white in this case. Runners B and C going to be the bulk of what's going to make up the inner frame for the kit in this dark gray color. Here is runner B, quite a big runner there with a bunch of parts on it, and then runners C we have two of. So that one's going to be doubled there. Runners D, E, and F, then some more white parts for the armor. Here's runner D, even smaller than runner E, just a little runner there, then another big runner here for runner F. Runner G, we have our blue parts here for the kit, and it is in like a somewhat light blue color there. Runner H, we have two of for some more parts here in a slightly off-white. Runner I as well, like with runner H, two of those. Runner J, some parts here in dark brown, looks like for the rifle. Then we have runners K, L, M, N, with runners K and N being our red runners there for the kit, and L and M being all our yellow parts here for some yellow accents. Last but not least then, runner O is going to be here in clear pinks for like the sword effect parts, beam saber effect parts, and then a couple of other little smaller clear pink parts there, I think, for like the eyes and head camera and stuff. So that's it for all the runners. Very interesting so far. Let me go ahead and get this put together and we'll check it out. All right, and here's our Godzilla Gramps all built up, and you'll notice decaled, panel lined, and top coated. Actually, I figured, I might as well just, put a little bit of extra effort into this one just to show it off to you guys. Straight out of the box, it looks fine, and there is plenty potential to do a whole lot more than what I've done here, which again, just very simple panel lining, the stock decals, and then some gloss top coat. I decided to switch it up a little bit. I would usually just go for matte automatically for pretty much anything, but I thought, why not go for glossy for this? It's kind of a unique kit, so go for a unique finish, at least for what I typically go for. But we do have some cool accessories in here, of course, as well. So let's go ahead and check those out. So just as a reminder, you do have this optional part for making it more sort of in the style of the Evangelion. It's just a matter of replacing the V-fin there on the head with this one, and then obviously, but the colors are not going to match the straight out of the box. But if you wanted to paint it in Evangelion colors, you could use that horn piece for that. We've also got a little action base adapter here, which is just going to fit up underneath the tail and looks like it's just the perfect size to use with your standard Bandai action bases. And then for our weapons, here is our rifle. Pretty cool design here for this. You can definitely see that it's got some Evangelion inspiration in the design of this one, and some Gundam, sort of like a mix of Evangelion and Gundam design stuff here with this. But the camera part on the top, you actually just click that back, then you can open this up, and I hope it doesn't like fly out when I do. This little ammo sort of bullet inside there with a cool little pink part for that, but that just fits inside here loosely. It doesn't really attach into anything, but then you can close that up, and then to keep that closed, yeah, the camera part just slides forward there, and then that's kind of locked into place. When not in use, unfortunately, there's nowhere to plug this onto the kit to store it when it's not in use, so it's either just held in the hand or you gotta just kind of set that off to the side. Unlike these sword options here. Now I made one of each, but you do have the effect parts to either make them both in this sort of like break-off knife sort of style, or this more sort of like, I don't know, sort of cyberpunk looking sort of sword style. So I just made one of each. And then here attached onto the side, there's these connection pieces. You can remove those. I just made those so that I could plug them onto the kit here, because when not in use, these can be attached onto any of these hard points that you have around here on the knee, the side of the thigh, the side of the elbow, on the back right there. So you could attach those onto there like that. Maybe remove the beam effect parts when they're stored, but we do of course also have the beam saber handles that are stored up there on the back, just like with the Gundam. And then we've got our beam effect parts for that too, which is made up of two different parts. One for this like little blast sort of effect at the end, and then like kind of the main shaft of the beam effect part. Now this can also be used with the rifle, supposedly. It seems like it's a really tight fit in there. Hang on a second. All right, I went ahead and drilled that hole out with a 2.5mm drill just to open it up a little bit more, and then the beam effect now fits in here perfectly fine. So really cool that you can use this beam effect here with the beam rifle as well. I really like that. So that is it for the weapons. Now, as for the main kit itself, as I said, I did do some panel lining on this just with some brown panel liner just kind of through everything. Usually I would use brown in like the red and yellow areas. I would use black on like the blue areas and then gray everywhere else, but I thought we'll just do brown kind of all over. I went ahead and used the included waterslide decals and just kind of basically followed the guide for the decals. You do have some leftover ones and some option ones, but I just kept it, you know, just as to what's laid out in the manual. And then some gloss top coat. Yeah, so just with like the kind of most basic of steps, here's how it's going to be looking. I think it looks great, but I will tell you guys that building this kit, it wasn't hard, but there was a little bit extra work required just because of the fit. And even you can see there's a couple areas where even the fit is not like perfect, like here on the front of the thigh, here on the back of the legs. Couldn't quite get these parts pushed together. A lot of the parts during the construction of this, I did like trim pegs and make little adjustments to the parts just to make sure that the parts would fit together nicely. And so in doing that, everything did fit together pretty well, but that did mean I just had to kind of do a lot of like preemptive work to make sure that everything was going to fit well. I only ended up having one part break on me. It was a little crack there on the back of the shoulder piece, and that's just because I kind of messed up and I originally put the shoulder armor parts on like wrong, so I had to then take them apart. Also, I should mention, basically everything that's not a moving part on this, I just went ahead and glued just because I just didn't want to have any issues with it. Not that I was expecting parts might be falling off, but I figured I knew this is something that I'm not going to be painting it. I'm just going to be, you know, doing panel lining, decal, and top coat. So if it's not a moving part, I'm just going to go ahead and glue it. So like I said, almost everything that's not a moving part is glued, but even the moving parts are really tight. Like here in the arms, like this shoulder joint, for example, still really tight. So again, if it's really tight like that, just be careful moving it, because that is a part that, you know, I don't know how easily this might be to break off, but if you know you're forcing it, you might break that part off. So anything like that, you know, you're just going to want to be a little bit careful with. But just to talk a little bit about some of the movement here, and we'll take a look at the kit in a few different poses in a minute. You've got a nice backwards bend here in the ab section. You can see some more pink clear parts in there for like some piping inside. It's pretty cool. These vents all move here as well. You can kind of move those individually. The mouth does close a bit more, but like not really entirely. So you kind of might as well just kind of leave it open there like that. And as for the hands, honestly, I think the hands are a little bit too big for the design. I wish that they were a little bit smaller. I know the Gundam Gundam usually has sort of larger hands, but Godzilla, like, not so much. So you have a couple of points of articulation in each finger. Basically, it's on a ball joint at the base, and there's a point of articulation in the middle, and the same goes for kind of all of the fingers here. The tail, obviously, we have some nice articulation here as well. Each joint between the sections can move sort of up and down as well as back and forth, side to side. Again, if this was a more perfect interpretation of the like Godzilla aspect of the design, I feel like the tail needs to be longer, but I feel like it's a nice length now that it just kind of adds to the design, also without making it so that it's going to be falling backwards or that it needs to use the tail like as a third leg, because as it is now, it stands perfectly fine even with the tail like not touching the ground, with it up off the ground. So in conclusion, guys, taking a look at the kit here in a few different poses, this is definitely a very novelty model kit, and it's one that I will say wasn't as good in terms of the build quality as a lot of other like original mecha models and third-party kits that are coming out these days like this. But that said, knowing that ahead of time, I just kind of prepared the parts as I was going along, doing a little bit extra cutting on some of the pegs, a little bit extra sanding here and there, and I didn't have any issues. So hopefully knowing that for any of you guys, if you're going to be getting the kit, if you're going to be building it, knowing that ahead of time will help you guys as well, and you shouldn't have any issues with the build. I had like that small little break on the shoulder I pointed out to you, but that was just my mistake, as things like that do tend to happen. Unfortunately, it's a small little break on the backside of the shoulder, so not a big issue. Anyway, it's definitely a really cool kit, and I'm happy with how this came out, just as a cool display piece to add to our store display here at USA Gundam Store, where of course you can get this kit if you're so inclined. The link will be down in the video description below, or if you're in the area here in Daytona Beach, of course you can stop into the store as well. You'll be able to see this in the display there, but let me know your thoughts. What do you guys think about this one? It's got some pretty cool weapons and accessories, but honestly, just like the main kit is kind of the main draw for me. I mean, the weapons are just kind of an added thing that I'm just sort of like, I tend to think of this as just sort of like a Gundam version of Godzilla, and less so like the other way around, in which case Godzilla, you're not normally seeing carrying like swords and rifles and stuff, right? So I don't know if this is maybe also come with some sort of shield, like some sort of version of like the Gundam's shield. I think that might have been kind of interesting, and maybe made me lean a bit more into thinking about this more sort of in like the Gundam aspect. But for me, it's more sort of like a mecha version of Godzilla, right? But anyway, guys, yeah, just let me know what you think about this one in the comment section below. Curious to hear your thoughts. And like I said, if you want to check it out for yourself, you can check the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store. And thank you guys so much for checking out the video here today. If you enjoyed it, do make sure to leave a like. And if you're not subscribed yet, you can subscribe there right below the video as well. So thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Later.